Elon Musk had just wrapped up his third meeting of the day and was already running late for the fourth. His stomach growled in protest. The day had been long, and he needed something quick before heading to the next conference. As he drove down the busy street, the familiar golden arches of a McDonald's restaurant caught his eye. With a sigh of relief, he muttered, "Why not?" He hadn't had fast food in months, and at this point, it seemed like the perfect solution to his hunger. He pulled into the drive-through lane and tapped his fingers impatiently on the steering wheel, noticing that the line was moving slower than usual. His phone buzzed with a message from the Tesla factory. He glanced at it briefly, but decided to ignore it for the moment. 5 minutes for a burger and fries was all he needed. When he finally reached the order screen, the monitor flickered and went black. Elon sighed, preparing himself for a delay. "Sorry about that," came a voice from the speaker. "Our system keeps crashing today. Give me just a second." Elon waited, his watch ticking away as he tapped his fingers on the wheel. 30 seconds later, the screen came back to life. "That was fast," Elon said with a small grin, impressed despite himself. "Just a quick reboot and code patch," the voice on the intercom responded. "What can I get for you today?" Elon ordered his usual, a double cheeseburger and fries, and moved forward to the payment window. As he approached, he caught sight of the young man standing there. The worker was in his early 30s with dark circles under his eyes, wearing a tired smile that didn't quite reach his gaze. His name tag read Riley, but what caught Elon's attention wasn't just his appearance. Riley extended the card reader for Elon's payment, and as Elon handed him his card, something unusual caught his eye. A small notebook was poking out of Riley's uniform pocket. A few complex diagrams peeked from the edges of the notebook. Battery schematics, to be exact. Elon squinted. He'd seen that type of drawing before. The scribbles, the complex lines, the precision. It reminded him of the work one of his former engineers used to do. Wait a minute, Elon thought, a sudden feeling of recognition stirring within him. He handed over his card, the transaction going smoothly, but Elon couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As Riley swiped the card, the machine beeped and the screen flickered to black. Riley cursed softly under his breath. Instead of calling for help, he bent down to the reader, opened a back panel, and quickly reset it with a few expert flicks of his fingers. It clicked. "Elon Musk?" Riley asked, stunned as he glanced up at him. Recognition flashed across his face, but it was quickly followed by shame. Riley looked down at the reader and almost mechanically handed Elon the card back. "Your order will be ready at the next window, Mr. Musk," Riley said formally. Elon narrowed his eyes. "Riley? Riley Monroe, right?" he pressed, his voice serious now. "You used to work at Tesla. You were one of our best engineers, particularly with the battery cooling system for the Model S. What happened? What are you doing here?" Riley flinched, his face turning pale at the mention of Tesla. A man in a suit passed behind him, Riley's supervisor perhaps, and Riley visibly stiffened. He quickly adjusted his posture and tried to brush off Elon's questions, clearly uncomfortable. "I need to keep this line moving, Mr. Musk," Riley said, his voice tight. "Please proceed to the next window." Elon didn't move. His mind was racing. Riley Monroe had been one of Tesla's rising stars. Only 6 months ago, he had been a crucial part of the team working on cutting-edge technology. Elon couldn't understand how someone with such talent could end up working at McDonald's, his potential seemingly wasted. Instead of collecting his food and driving off as planned, Elon made a quick decision. He pulled his car into the parking lot and shut off the engine. He pulled out his phone and began searching through old Tesla emails. 6 months ago, there had been a personnel notice. Riley Monroe had been fired. The email offered no explanation for the decision, just a brief mention of termination of employment. Elon frowned. He knew that Tesla handled its employees with a lot of care, particularly the engineers. Riley's termination had been unexpected, and if it was serious, Elon should have been informed. It didn't make sense that such a talented engineer had simply vanished. He typed out a quick text to his assistant. "Need info on why Riley Monroe left Tesla 6 months ago. Urgent." As he sat in the parking lot, still waiting for Riley to finish preparing his order, Elon noticed how methodical the young man was at his job. Even though he appeared exhausted, there was a certain precision in the way Riley handled the card reader. the way he fixed the malfunction so effortlessly. It reminded Elon of the kind of focus he'd seen in Tesla's best engineers. It was clear that Riley was more than just a worker at McDonald's. He was an innovator, and that passion had never left him. Elon's thoughts were interrupted as Riley finally came to the window with his order. He handed over the food, but his eyes were still fixed downward. "Here you go," Riley mumbled, his tone flat. Elon grabbed the bag, but instead of driving off, he paused. Something told him he needed to know more about Riley's story, something deeper than what was obvious. He watched as Riley stepped away from the window, removed his McDonald's hat, and started walking toward the bus stop. Elon got out of his car and walked toward him. "Riley," he called out. Riley froze, then slowly turned around. Up close, his face was even more tired than it had looked from the window. "Mr. Musk," he said quietly, his voice strained. "I'm sorry about earlier. I just can't afford to lose this job." Elon studied him for a moment, sensing that there was more to the story than just a job at McDonald's. "What happened?" Elon asked softly. "You were doing some of the best work at Tesla? What led to this?" Riley hesitated for a moment, then looked down at his worn shoes. "Life happened," he said softly. "I'm sure the report explains it all." Elon's gaze softened. "I want to hear it from you," he said gently. "Do you have a few minutes to talk?" Riley glanced at his watch. "I've got to catch the 5:15 bus. My neighbor's watching Maya for me, but I need to be home by 6. "Maya," Elon repeated, noting the tenderness in Riley's voice when he mentioned her. "Your daughter?" Riley's tired expression softened at the mention of his daughter, but then he glanced back toward the bus stop. "I've got time," he said with a sigh. "But just 20 minutes." Elon smiled. "I'll drive you home," he offered. "Let's talk on the way." Elon and Riley drove in silence for a few minutes, the sound of the engine humming softly between them. Elon kept glancing at Riley, who seemed lost in thought, his tired eyes fixed on the road ahead. Elon didn't press him immediately. He understood that people needed time to open up, especially when it came to matters as personal as the fall from grace Riley had endured. They reached a small cafe on the corner of a street, and Riley looked over at Elon, then back at the bus stop. "I don't mean to be rude, but I really don't have a lot of time," Riley said, his voice tense but polite. Elon waved a hand, signaling that it was okay. "We'll make it quick, I promise. Besides, sometimes the most important conversations are the ones that happen in unexpected places." Riley hesitated, then nodded. They stepped into the cafe, and Elon led them to a corner booth. As they sat down, Riley pulled out a crumpled napkin from his pocket and began to absent-mindedly draw on it while Elon placed their orders. A strange mixture of exhaustion and focus emanated from him. Elon studied him for a moment. "You don't need to talk about everything all at once, Riley, but I can't shake the feeling that something's wrong with this whole situation. You were one of our best engineers. You helped revolutionize the way we think about battery cooling, and then suddenly, nothing." Riley's eyes flicked up from the napkin, a flash of anger crossing his face. "You don't know the half of it," he muttered. "I didn't just get pushed out. It was more like a setup. And trust me, Elon, there's a lot more at play here than just technical issues." Elon leaned forward slightly, his interest piqued. "What do you mean by that?" Riley sighed, rubbing his face as though he had been carrying the weight of his story for too long. He took a deep breath before speaking again. "It started when I began working on the cooling system for the Model S batteries. You know, we had some major issues with the initial designs. We were behind schedule, and the pressure from above was getting to everyone. But I was close, Elon. I was close to solving the problem." He paused, his eyes flashing with the remnants of old frustrations. "But then, the numbers didn't line up. The preliminary tests weren't working out the way we hoped. My supervisor, Victor Chambers, he was pushing for results, and he wasn't the type to back off. He called me into his office one Friday morning and told me he wanted me to adjust the numbers for the upcoming meeting with senior management." Elon's brow furrowed in confusion. "You mean falsify the results?" Riley nodded, his jaw tightening. "Exactly. But I told him I couldn't do that. I needed more time to run additional tests. The data wasn't accurate yet, and I wasn't going to risk everything on faulty results. I worked all weekend, barely slept. But when I sent my final report on Sunday night, I thought I'd found the right solution. Real data, real results. I believed it would get us where we needed to go. Elon remained silent for a moment, absorbing Riley's words. It didn't sound like the Riley he had known, the Riley Musk had respected so much during his time at Tesla. This wasn't just about science. This was about doing the right thing. Elon could see it now, clearer than ever. Riley had stood by his principles when the company was demanding results at any cost. What happened then? Elon asked quietly, his voice filled with empathy. Riley's hands trembled slightly as he picked up his coffee cup. I came in on Monday morning, prepared to present my findings. But when I got there, the report that I had sent to Victor was wrong. It wasn't the one I had written. They showed me a version with altered data I never submitted, and Victor claimed that I'd sent it to him that way. He said I was distracted by my daughter's illness. She was in and out of the hospital back then, and that I made a mistake. Elon's heart sank as he heard the story. He couldn't fathom it. How could Tesla, of all places, let something like this happen? How could they take Victor's word without double-checking? The thought of such a brilliant engineer like Riley being manipulated like that was infuriating. But why didn't you fight it? Elon asked, his voice low. Why didn't you go to HR or someone higher up? Riley laughed bitterly. Because I didn't have the luxury of fighting it. I had a sick daughter, and her treatments were expensive. The insurance was already a mess. My wife, my ex-wife, was losing patience with everything. I was already under pressure, and I couldn't afford to make waves. I needed to work, and when HR called me in that day, I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a voice anymore. I got fired on the spot, no severance, and no way to take care of Maya's medical bills. Elon's stomach twisted with disgust. He had always prided himself on running a company that valued its people, its talent. But this was unjust. I didn't even get a chance to explain myself, Riley continued, his voice softer now. And the worst part was, once I was fired, I lost my health care. Maya needed treatments, and suddenly I didn't even have the coverage to afford them. So I did what I had to do. I took the first job I could find. The bitterness in Riley's voice was palpable. Elon remained silent for a moment, processing everything. It was clear that Riley had been cornered. It was easy to see how someone like Victor, with his insecurities and need for control, would have manipulated the situation. The worst part was that Tesla had let it happen. So that's why you're here now, working at McDonald's? Elon asked, his voice tinged with understanding. Riley nodded, looking down at his hands. I'm just trying to keep Maya's life as normal as possible. McDonald's gave me the flexibility to work around her treatments, but honestly, I never stopped working on my designs. He paused, looking at the napkin in his hand. I just wanted to stay sharp. It's hard not to think about the work I did at Tesla. It's who I am. Elon leaned back, deep in thought. This was a man who had been wronged, and yet he still had the heart of an innovator. There was no way Elon could let this talent slip away. Riley, he said finally, his tone resolute, I think I can help you. I'm going to make sure you get a second chance. You're too valuable to just be sitting here. Riley looked up at him, disbelief written on his face. What are you talking about? Elon gave him a small smile. You're coming back to Tesla. I'm going to make sure of it. Riley was quiet for a moment, absorbing what Elon had just said. He stared at him, unable to process it fully. His mind had been conditioned to assume that the doors had closed behind him, permanently. There was no way back from a wrongful termination, especially when the company had moved on. But here Elon was, sitting across from him in a small cafe, offering him the impossible. You don't know what you're saying, Riley said, shaking his head in disbelief. Tesla won't just take me back. You don't understand how things work at that level. I've been fired. My reputation, it's been ruined. You don't come back from that. Elon's expression was calm but firm. You're wrong, he said quietly. I've seen what you can do. I've seen the work you did at Tesla, and I've seen what you can do now. You're not defined by what happened. You're defined by what you can create. And I know you can still innovate. I'm going to help you do that. Riley's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't some kind of empty gesture or a pity offer. Elon was serious, and Riley could see that in his eyes. Still, doubt gnawed at him. I don't know, Riley trailed off. What's the catch? There's no catch, Elon said. I'm not asking you to just come back and pick up where you left off. I want you to work on something new, something innovative. I need someone with your vision, your drive. You're going to work on a project that could change everything. I've got a place for you in our new division. We're working on improving battery technology, and I want you to lead a special project. Riley blinked, unsure if he had heard Elon correctly. Wait, you want me to work on a special project? But I don't even have access to the data anymore. I haven't worked on anything like that in months. Elon leaned forward. I'm not asking you to work with the same data you had before. You'll be starting fresh. But the point is, you're not just going to be another cog in the machine. You'll have the freedom to think, to create. This project could be revolutionary, Riley. I know you're still capable of making breakthroughs like you did before. And if you do, it won't just change Tesla. It could change the entire industry. Riley's mind was racing. The offer was tempting. More than tempting, it was everything he had wanted for the last 6 months. The opportunity to prove himself again, to work on something that mattered. But a part of him hesitated, unsure whether he could trust this new chance. What if he failed again? What if Tesla was just offering him a false hope? Elon seemed to sense the hesitation. I know it's hard to trust, but I wouldn't offer this to you if I didn't believe in you. You've still got it in you. I can see it. I'm not just offering you a job, Riley. I'm offering you a second chance. Riley let out a long breath. His fingers drummed nervously on the table as he processed everything Elon had said. His heart was racing. He had been fighting for this moment for months, but the doubt still lingered. Could he do it again? Could he go back to Tesla, the company that had cast him aside so easily? You really believe I can still do this? Riley asked, looking Elon in the eyes. Elon smiled. I don't just believe it, I know it. I've seen what you're capable of, and I know what you've been through. Now let's make sure your work speaks louder than the mistakes of the past. Riley sat back in his seat, his mind whirling. It had been so long since anyone had believed in him this way, since anyone had seen past his failure. And here was Elon Musk, one of the most influential figures in tech, giving him another shot. The possibility was almost too much to comprehend. All right, Riley said finally, his voice quieter now, tinged with a mix of emotion and uncertainty. I'll do it, but I don't know where to start. Elon's eyes twinkled. We'll figure it out. But first, let's get you back into the Tesla fold. Elon spent the next few days setting things up for Riley's return. He personally spoke to the head of Tesla's battery division, arranging for Riley to meet with the team and familiarize himself with the projects. Elon was determined to make sure that Riley didn't just get his job back. He was going to give him the resources and freedom he needed to succeed. On the day of Riley's return to Tesla, Elon drove him to the factory personally, a gesture that caught Riley off guard. As they entered the gates, Riley felt the familiar weight of the place, the hum of innovation, the quiet sense of purpose that had always drawn him to Tesla in the first place. But now as he stepped through the doors, it felt different. It felt like a second chance. They met with Lynn, the head of Tesla's battery division, and several other engineers who would be working with Riley. The team was warm and welcoming, though there was still an underlying wariness, particularly from some who had heard of Riley's past at the company. But Elon had already assured them that Riley would be given the full support to lead his own project. Riley, Lynn said, shaking his hand, we're excited to have you back. We've been following some of the designs you've been working on. We're eager to see what you can bring to the table. Riley nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. The skepticism was still there from a few people, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that he was back in the place he loved, with a chance to make a real difference. As Riley walked through the hallways of Tesla's factory, Elon by his side, he couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude and determination. This wasn't just about proving himself to Tesla. It was about proving to himself that he was still the innovator he had always been. Later that day, Elon pulled him aside. I'm glad you're here, Riley. This is going to be big. The first step is trusting yourself again. I know it's not easy, but you're here for a reason. Riley smiled, a small flicker of confidence returning to him. Thanks, Elon. I won't let you down. Riley's first week back at Tesla was a whirlwind. Elon had made good on his promise, giving him the space to develop his own special project. But the work wasn't easy. The first day Riley stepped back into the battery division, it felt like he had been transported to a different world. The faces were new, the technology more advanced than he remembered, and the weight of expectations, both his own and those of the team, hung heavily on his shoulders. Despite his initial nervousness, Riley threw himself into the work. He revisited the cooling system designs he had once dreamed up while working at McDonald's, testing out new ideas and refining old ones. The notebooks he had kept tucked away, filled with complex calculations and battery schematics, became his lifeline once more. He worked tirelessly, often staying late into the evening, sketching designs on napkins, running simulations, and refining calculations. The team was supportive but cautious. They had heard the rumors about Riley's firing, and some of them were skeptical. They wanted to see if he could truly deliver what he had promised. But there was one person who stood out among the others. Aisha, a senior engineer who had been at Tesla for years. She had heard about Riley's past, but she was willing to give him a chance. Aisha approached Riley one afternoon as he pored over his designs at his desk. "I've seen what you're working on," she said, her tone neutral but curious. "Your cooling system ideas. How far along are you with the simulations?" Riley looked up, surprised to see her standing there. "I'm still tweaking a few things, but the numbers look promising. I think I've found a way to make the system more efficient than what we've been testing." Aisha raised an eyebrow. "That's a bold claim. I've been working on the cooling system for a while now, and it's been a headache. If you can really improve it, I'd be interested to see how." Riley nodded, a slight smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I'm working on something that could lower the temperature by 15% more than our current models, and the cooling capacity would be doubled. I'm running tests right now, but I think it's going to work." Aisha hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "I'll help. I know how to test these things, and it's always better to have someone double-check the calculations. We've got a lot riding on this project." Riley looked at her, feeling a rush of gratitude. Aisha had no obligation to help him, especially not given the skepticism that some of the team members still harbored toward him. But her offer was a sign that, at least some, were starting to believe in his potential again. They worked together for hours, refining the design, running simulations, and checking calculations. As the days passed, Riley felt more and more like the engineer he had once been, the one who believed in his ideas, the one who had the confidence to make things happen. And then, the breakthrough came. After a week of testing, Riley saw the numbers he had been waiting for. The new cooling system was working better than he had ever imagined. It wasn't just an incremental improvement, it was a game changer. The battery temperatures were running significantly lower, and the efficiency of the cooling process was up by 20%. He knew without a doubt that he had created something special. Excited, he called Aisha over to take a look at the results. When she saw the data, her eyes widened in disbelief. This is incredible, Riley. You've actually done it." Riley's heart swelled with pride. It wasn't just the numbers. It was the fact that he had proven to himself and to his colleagues that he was capable of more than he had ever imagined. Elon had always believed in him, and now Riley was starting to believe in himself again. He had found his place at Tesla, not as someone who was haunted by the past, but as someone who had a future, one full of promise and innovation. But the real test was still to come. The company's leadership would have to sign off on the design, and Riley knew that would be no easy task. Not everyone was on his side. There were still whispers about his past, and there were those who doubted his ability to lead a high-stakes project. The next day, Elon asked Riley to present his findings to the board. It was a nerve-wracking experience. Riley stood in front of a large room filled with executives, engineers, and senior management. His hands were clammy, and his heart was racing. But he had something no one else had: real results. His design spoke for itself. The numbers, the simulations, and the promise of a better future for Tesla's battery systems. As Riley presented his work, he could see the skepticism in some of the faces in the room. The murmurs, the glances exchanged, the quiet discussions, they all made him feel like an outsider again, the same outsider who had been fired just months ago. But this time was different. This time, he was armed with hard data. Finally, after Riley finished his presentation, Elon stood up and walked over to the projector screen. "What we're seeing here is the future," Elon said, his voice strong and unwavering. "This design, created by Riley Monroe, isn't just an improvement, it's a breakthrough. This technology will revolutionize our batteries, lower costs, and improve the lifespan of our products." The room fell silent, the weight of Elon's words settling over everyone. Some of the board members exchanged hesitant glances, but none of them spoke out. Finally, a senior board member nodded. "We'll move forward with this," he said, his tone slow but firm. "This could change the way we think about battery technology." Riley felt the weight of the moment hit him. He had done it. He had not only earned back his place at Tesla, but he had also secured the future of the company in a way that no one had expected. As the meeting wrapped up, Elon pulled Riley aside. "Well done. You've earned this. Tesla has a new direction, and you're a key part of it." Riley smiled, but it wasn't just a smile of relief. It was a smile of pride. "Thank you, Elon. I couldn't have done it without your belief in me." Elon gave him a knowing look. "You've always had it in you, Riley. Sometimes it just takes a little push to get you where you belong." Riley's breakthrough was celebrated across Tesla, but the road ahead was far from smooth. While most of the team rallied behind him, there were still some who couldn't let go of the past. Victor Chambers, the man who had orchestrated his firing, was one of them. Though he had been moved to a different department after the firing incident, his influence was still deeply felt, especially within the engineering team. The weeks following Riley's successful presentation were a mix of triumph and tension. Elon's confidence in him was evident, and that gave Riley the strength to keep pushing forward. But the undercurrents of resentment were impossible to ignore. Victor, now working on Tesla's international expansion project, had no direct power over Riley's division anymore. But his reach was still long. Riley had heard rumors of Victor speaking ill of him to other senior members, casting doubt on his abilities. He also heard whispered comments about how he had only been rehired due to Elon's personal involvement. For some, it wasn't just a matter of his technical prowess. It was about the way Riley had broken the system by getting a second chance. One afternoon, as Riley was reviewing a new set of simulations, he received an email from an unknown address. It was a message from Victor. "You may have fooled Elon and the board, but I know who you really are. Don't think your little project will go unnoticed. There are people in this company who will make sure your second chance is your last. Watch your back." Riley stared at the screen in disbelief. It was a direct threat, a warning. He could feel the heat rising in his chest. His hands shook slightly, but he refused to let fear consume him. This was no longer the man who had been cast aside so easily. He had a purpose now. He had a vision, and he wouldn't let anyone take that from him. He called Aisha into his office. "What's going on, Riley?" Aisha asked, noticing the tension in his eyes. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I got a message from Victor," Riley said quietly, his voice tight. "He's not letting this go. I thought I'd left him behind, but he's still trying to pull strings." Aisha's expression darkened. "He's a toxic influence, Riley, but we're not backing down. You've got this. We've all got your back. You've proven yourself." Riley met her gaze, feeling a wave of gratitude for her support. "I don't want to make this into something it isn't, but Victor's been a thorn in my side for too long. He's not going to get away with this." Aisha placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We won't let him, but we need to stay focused. Your design is what matters. We've already shown the world what you're capable of. Now let's keep pushing forward." But the sabotage didn't stop there. A few days later, during a meeting with the senior engineering team, Riley presented his latest findings, an improved version of the cooling system that could further increase efficiency by 25%. He had spent countless hours perfecting the design, and the numbers looked incredible. But as Riley went over the data, he noticed something odd. One of the engineers, a colleague from the international division, was quietly taking notes, but his body language was stiff. Riley didn't think much of it at first, but then he saw the man glance over at Victor's team, which was seated at the back of the room. The meeting ended, but Riley couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. That evening, he stayed late to review his presentation materials again, and that's when he found it. The critical calculations for the cooling system's efficiency had been altered. The numbers were different, off by several percentage points, just enough to cause the design to fail under real-world conditions. Someone had tampered with his work. Riley's heart raced. He immediately ran the simulations again, confirming what he feared. Someone had sabotaged his data, hoping to discredit him in front of the team. He could already hear the whispers. How Riley had failed once again. How he was incapable of delivering results. This wasn't just about the cooling system. This was about his reputation, his chance at redemption. It was all at risk. The sabotage had to stop. Riley reached out to Elon, who had already left the office for the day. Elon had been nothing but supportive since his return, but this was different. He needed to confront the issue head-on. He quickly composed an email to Elon, detailing the altered calculations and the possible involvement of one of Victor's associates. It didn't take long for Elon to respond. "I'll take care of it. You focus on getting your work back on track. You've got the entire company behind you, Riley." The next morning, Riley arrived at Tesla to find an unusual sense of tension in the air. As he passed the security desk, he noticed an unfamiliar figure standing by the elevators. It was one of Tesla's senior managers, but Riley couldn't place the man. He looked like he had been waiting for someone. The man approached him as soon as he saw him. "Riley Monroe?" he asked, his tone flat. "That's me," Riley replied, feeling a knot form in his stomach. "I'm with corporate security," the man said, flashing a badge. "We've received some concerning reports about altered data in your recent presentations. We need to conduct a full investigation." Riley's breath caught. It was happening. Victor's plan was unfolding. But Riley didn't back down. "I'm not the one who altered the data," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I've already flagged the issue, and I'm working with Elon to resolve it." The man nodded as if he had already heard the story. "We'll sort this out. For now, we'll need you to step aside while we investigate." Riley felt a wave of frustration, but he knew that the company had to follow protocol. This wasn't about the truth anymore. It was about clearing his name. And with Elon backing him, he felt confident that the truth would prevail. Later that day, Elon called him into his office. "I know this is tough, Riley, but I want you to know, you've got my full support. I'll make sure Victor's attempts to sabotage you don't succeed." Riley nodded, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. Elon's confidence in him was unwavering, and it gave him the strength to keep pushing forward. "I'll take care of it," Elon continued. "But you need to stay focused on what you do best. Keep your head down and let us handle the politics." Riley took a deep breath. He wasn't going to let Victor or anyone else derail him now. His work was too important, and he had too much to prove. The investigation took a few days, and in the end, the truth came out. It was discovered that the data had been altered from the international division. Victor's allies had been behind the sabotage. The changes were small but deliberate enough to create doubt about Riley's abilities. Elon moved quickly, putting an end to the issue. Victor's associates were reprimanded, and an internal review of Tesla's data integrity procedures was initiated. As for Riley, his name was cleared. The project moved forward, and the sabotage was nothing more than a footnote in the company's history. Riley had weathered the storm, and now he was stronger than ever. The weeks after the sabotage incident were a blur for Riley. With the threat of Victor's manipulation behind him, he threw himself even more fervently into his work. Tesla's leadership had made it clear that his design was one of the most innovative ideas they'd seen in years, and now the pressure was on for him to deliver on that promise. But despite the challenges and the emotional roller coaster of the past few months, Riley found a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't just back at Tesla for the sake of his career. He was there because he believed in the company's mission and because he wanted to make something that would last. A legacy, not just a product. The new cooling system design was on track to be tested in the upcoming prototype of the next generation Tesla vehicles. Riley was now working closely with the manufacturing and production teams, fine-tuning the details of the system and ensuring that it could be efficiently integrated into the new models. This wasn't just about improving battery performance. It was about pushing the boundaries of what was possible in electric vehicles. One afternoon, Riley sat in a meeting with Elon and the senior engineering team to discuss the final testing phase of the cooling system. The excitement in the room was palpable. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, the chance to see if the new design could meet the expectations. Riley presented the final iteration of the system, explaining how the design would reduce overheating, increase battery lifespan, and lower production costs. He had worked tirelessly on the calculations, running them through simulations, making sure that everything was perfect. When he finished, there was a brief silence, and then the room erupted in applause. Elon stood up, clapping along with the rest of the team. "This is exactly what we need," Elon said, his voice full of pride. "Riley, you've not only proven that second chances matter, you've shown the world that innovation comes from everywhere. This is going to change everything." Riley stood there, overwhelmed. For the first time in months, he felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. He had worked through the pain, the doubt, and the sabotage. Now it was all paying off. His designs weren't just changing the future of Tesla, they were shaping the future of the entire electric vehicle industry. But the recognition didn't stop there. Later that week, during a press conference, Elon took a moment to acknowledge Riley's contributions to Tesla's success. The media had already picked up on the breakthrough, and Tesla was being hailed for its innovative technology. Elon made sure that Riley was front and center, acknowledging his hard work, his dedication, and his resilience. Today, I want to introduce you to someone who's not just a brilliant engineer, but a testament to what it means to persevere through adversity, Elon said, his voice strong. Riley Monroe has played a critical role in the development of Tesla's next-generation battery systems. His design will change the way we think about energy storage, efficiency, and sustainability. We are lucky to have him on this team. Riley felt his chest swell with pride. He had come a long way from the man who had been fired without cause, who had worked at McDonald's just to make ends meet. And now here he was, standing next to one of the most influential people in the world, being recognized for his work. The press conference was a huge success. Tesla's stock soared, and investors were ecstatic about the potential of Riley's cooling system to improve their battery performance. But for Riley, the most rewarding part was seeing his family, his daughter Maya, cheer him on. Maya had been Riley's anchor throughout all of this. Her battle with cancer had been one of the toughest experiences of his life, but it had also taught him the value of perseverance. He had worked long hours, stayed up late, and fought through his own doubts, all for her. And now she was sitting in the audience, proud of her father's accomplishments. After the press conference, Riley rushed home to Maya, who was already waiting for him with a big smile. She had been following the event on her tablet, and her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Daddy, you did it!" she exclaimed, running up to him. Riley picked her up in his arms, hugging her tightly. "We did it, sweetheart," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We did it together." Maya grinned. "Are you going to make more cool cars now, like the one you showed in the video?" Riley chuckled, a warmth spreading through his chest. "Yes, I am. And maybe one day, we'll make a car that's even better. A car that doesn't need gas and can go even farther." Maya nodded seriously. "That would be awesome, Daddy. You can make anything happen." Riley smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Thanks, Maya. You're the best inspiration I could ever ask for." That evening, as Riley sat in the living room with Maya and his ex-wife, who had recently reached out to him again, he couldn't help but feel a sense of completeness. The chaos, the doubt, and the stress that had defined his life for so long had finally given way to something better. His work was recognized, his daughter was healthy, and maybe, just maybe, the future was bright once again. But the journey wasn't over. Riley knew that this was just the beginning of something even greater. The design was just the first step, and he was already looking forward to what came next. He was a part of something bigger than himself now, a movement to change the world through innovation, through second chances, and through the unwavering belief that talent, no matter the setbacks, would always find a way to shine. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of excitement and anticipation. Tesla was preparing for the official rollout of Riley's new battery cooling system, which had already begun to attract attention from the tech community. The media buzzed with reports on the potential of Tesla's latest breakthrough, and investors were eagerly watching the company's every move. But despite the public recognition and growing success, Riley couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. He had spent months fighting for this moment, for the chance to prove himself again, and now it was happening. Tesla was becoming a shining example of innovation, and his work was front and center. Yet Riley still felt like something was missing. He had returned to Tesla as an engineer, Someone who was driven by his love of technology, his desire to create, and his need to prove that he still had something valuable to offer. But now, as he worked alongside the team, Riley couldn't help but wonder, was his value only tied to his technical skills, or did it go deeper than that? Was there a greater purpose to what he was doing at Tesla? The thought lingered as Riley prepared for one of the most significant moments of his career. Elon had invited him to a special event, a public press conference where he would be announced as one of Tesla's key leaders in the upcoming innovation projects. It was a monumental step in his journey, an opportunity for Riley to step out of the shadows of his past and fully embrace his role as a leader in Tesla's future. As the day of the event approached, Riley wrestled with his emotions. He had come so far, but a part of him still wasn't sure if he belonged at the top of the company's hierarchy. After all, just a year ago, he had been working at McDonald's, struggling to make ends meet. Now he was being thrust into the limelight, with people looking to him for inspiration. It was overwhelming, to say the least. When the day of the press conference arrived, Riley found himself standing backstage, surrounded by Tesla executives, engineers, and other key players in the company. Elon was standing beside him, preparing for his speech. "You ready?" Elon asked, looking over at Riley with a knowing smile. Riley took a deep breath, glancing at the crowd gathered in the audience. "I don't know. It feels surreal. A year ago, I was just hoping to get a job, and now I'm here, in front of all these people." Elon smiled, his gaze steady and focused. "You belong here, Riley. Don't forget that. You've earned every step of this journey. Now go out there and show them why you're part of this company's future." As the event began, Riley stood in front of the crowd, the bright lights blinding him for a moment. The cameras flashed, the audience murmured in anticipation, and Elon stepped up to the podium. "Elon Musk," the host began, "and Tesla have been pushing the boundaries of innovation for years. Today we're here to talk about the future of electric vehicles, clean energy, and the technology that will shape the world in the years to come." The host turned toward Riley. "And with that future in mind, we're proud to introduce one of Tesla's brightest engineers, Riley Monroe. Riley, you've made significant contributions to the development of Tesla's next-generation battery technology. Can you tell us a bit about what it means to be part of this revolution?" Riley stepped forward, his heart racing. The audience was silent, waiting for him to speak. He took a deep breath. "A year ago, I never would have imagined being here. I was just trying to keep my head above water, make sure my daughter got the treatment she needed. But thanks to Tesla, and thanks to Elon, I was given a second chance. A chance to prove that no matter what happens in life, talent doesn't disappear. It doesn't matter where you've been or what you've gone through. What matters is what you create, what you bring to the table." Riley paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "I've always believed that innovation comes from unexpected places. Sometimes the hardest moments in life bring out the best in us. And that's what I see at Tesla. People who face challenges and setbacks but have come together to build something incredible." He looked out at the audience, his eyes steady. "This cooling system is just the beginning. We've got so much more to do, so much more to create. And I can't wait to see what we all do next. Because the truth is, we're only limited by our imaginations. And I believe that together we can change the world." The room erupted in applause, and Riley felt his heart soar. For the first time, he was truly embracing the journey he had been on. He wasn't just an engineer. He was part of something larger than himself. A movement to change the way the world thought about energy, technology, and innovation. And in that moment, he realized something important. This wasn't just about him. It was about the people who had given him a second chance. The people who believed in him when he had nothing left. Elon stood beside him, clapping along with the rest of the room. As the applause died down, Elon leaned over and whispered, "That was perfect. You did it." Riley smiled, feeling a rush of emotion. "Thanks, Elon, for everything." Later that day, as the press conference concluded, Riley took a moment to reflect on how far he had come. The road had been long, filled with doubts, setbacks, and moments of despair. But here he was, standing at the forefront of a revolution, recognized not just for his skills, but for his resilience. He had made it through the darkest days, and now he was living the life he had always dreamed of. The story of his second chance wasn't just about proving himself to others. It was about proving to himself that he was capable of achieving greatness, no matter the obstacles. And now, as Riley stood beside Elon and looked out at the horizon, he knew that his journey was far from over. Riley had come a long way, from being fired under dubious circumstances to facing sabotage from his past colleagues. He had fought hard to regain his place at Tesla. But even as his work became more integral to the company's future, Riley found himself wondering if his success was truly his own, or if it was just the result of being given a second chance. He had always thought that innovation and hard work spoke for themselves, but now as the spotlight shone brightly on him, he realized there was more to the story. Elon had done more than just offer him a job. He had provided Riley with a platform for his ideas, giving him the freedom to experiment and the resources to bring his innovations to life. And Riley appreciated that more than anything else. He had the opportunity to lead a new division at Tesla, one focused on improving energy storage and battery technology, something he had dreamed of doing for years. But with that responsibility came pressure. The success of his cooling system had put him at the forefront of Tesla's research and development efforts. Other engineers began to look to him for answers, to ask for his opinion on everything from battery configurations to production processes. And while Riley welcomed the challenge, he couldn't help but feel the weight of expectations bearing down on him. It wasn't just the work, it was the constant reminder of his past. He was still the man who had been fired, the one who had worked at McDonald's to support his daughter. And no matter how much he accomplished, a part of him still felt like an imposter, like someone who didn't truly belong. One day, as Riley sat in his office, reviewing a new round of designs for Tesla's next-generation batteries, he received a call from Aisha. She had been working closely with him on the project, and they had become fast friends over the months. "Hey, Riley," Aisha said, her voice full of energy. "We've got some exciting news. The board's been looking at your design, and it looks like they're going to fast-track it into production." Riley's heart skipped a beat. "Wait, really? I thought it was still in the testing phase." "It is, but the results are so impressive that they want to start building prototypes. This could be a huge step forward for Tesla," Aisha replied, "and they're thinking about using your design in the new gigafactories." Riley leaned back in his chair, feeling a surge of pride. This was the kind of breakthrough he had always hoped for. But even as the excitement bubbled up inside him, a part of him couldn't shake the doubt that had been creeping into his mind. What if this was all temporary? What if he wasn't the genius everyone thought he was? What if it was just luck? "Thanks, Aisha," Riley said, his voice steady, though he could feel the uncertainty creeping in. "This is big. Let's make sure everything's in place." "Don't worry, Riley," Aisha said, sensing the shift in his mood. "You've got this. We've all got your back." Later that evening, as Riley sat at home, he looked at his daughter, Maya, who was playing with her toys on the floor. She had been doing well with her treatments, and the doctors had given them good news about her recovery. The weight of the world didn't feel so heavy when he was with her. She was his reason for everything, his reason to keep pushing forward no matter the obstacles. "Daddy," Maya called out, looking up from her toys with a smile. "When are you going to make the cool car that doesn't need gas?" Riley smiled, walking over to her and sitting down on the floor. "I'm working on it, sweetheart. I'm working on it." Maya looked at him with wide eyes. "I know you can do it, Daddy. You're the smartest guy ever." Riley chuckled, his heart swelling with pride. "Thanks, kiddo. You always know how to make me feel better." As Maya ran off to continue playing, Riley thought about her words. Maybe she was right. Maybe he had more to give than he had ever realized. Maybe his past didn't define him, not in the way he had thought. In the weeks that followed, Riley threw himself into his work even more. The fast tracking of his cooling system into production was a huge deal for Tesla, and it required all hands on deck. Riley worked closely with the engineers, the manufacturing team, and the production line staff to ensure that the transition went smoothly. There were long nights, endless meetings, and more tests to run. But through it all, Riley felt a sense of purpose and determination. This was what he had been meant to do. And then one afternoon, Elon called him into his office. "Riley," Elon began, his voice filled with a rare seriousness. I want to talk to you about something important. Riley sat down, his mind racing. Had something gone wrong with the new design? Was there an issue with production? Elon was never this formal unless there was a significant matter at hand. I've been thinking a lot about your journey, Elon said, leaning back in his chair, about what you've overcome, and I think it's time for you to take the next step. Riley's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. Next step? What do you mean? I mean it's time for you to lead. We're forming a new division at Tesla, one that focuses not just on energy storage, but on the future of sustainable technology. And I want you to be at the helm of it. Riley was stunned. You want me to lead a whole division? But I'm just... No, Elon interrupted, his voice firm but kind. You're not just anything, Riley. You're one of the best engineers I've ever had the pleasure of working with. You've proven yourself, and you've earned this. Now it's time for you to take your place as one of the leaders of this company. Riley sat in silence for a moment, processing what Elon had just said. He had never expected to be in this position, never thought he would be trusted with such a huge responsibility. He had fought for this moment, but now that it was here, he wasn't sure he was ready. But deep down, he knew this was his chance, to not only prove his worth to Tesla, but to prove it to himself. He had earned this, and it was time to embrace the opportunity. I'm honored, Elon, Riley finally said, his voice steady, and I won't let you down. Elon smiled. I know you won't, Riley. I know you won't. Riley had finally found his place in the world. The uncertainty that had plagued him for so long had given way to a sense of clarity. He wasn't just an engineer anymore. He wasn't defined by the mistakes of his past or the struggles he had endured to get here. No longer was he the man who had been fired from Tesla, cast aside by his peers, and forced to work at McDonald's to keep his family afloat. Riley Monroe had earned his redemption. Now, as the leader of Tesla's new division focused on sustainable energy and next-generation battery technology, Riley had reached the pinnacle of his career. It wasn't just the promotion that made him feel proud. It was the fact that he had built something meaningful, something that would make a real difference in the world. It was also the recognition from his peers, and more importantly, from Elon Musk. Elon had believed in him when no one else did. He had given him a chance when the system seemed to have discarded him. And now Riley was leading a team that was on the brink of changing the future. It was a quiet Friday afternoon when Riley walked into his new office for the first time. The door, sleek and modern, opened with a soft hiss, and the cool air inside felt like a fresh start. His desk was cluttered with plans, blueprints, and prototypes. But it wasn't the work that caught his attention. It was the feeling. It was the feeling that he had arrived. As Riley sat down in the chair, his fingers grazed over the designs for a new generation of Tesla vehicles that would revolutionize energy consumption. The team had already begun working on integrating his new cooling system, the one that had gained so much praise from the board. The future was now in his hands, and it was his to shape. Over the past few months, Riley had been building relationships with the engineers, the leaders in different departments, and, most importantly, the people who had been there for him when it seemed like no one else cared. They had all rallied behind him, and together they were making history. But success in the workplace didn't mean Riley's journey had been without moments of doubt. He had moments where he looked at the massive responsibility ahead of him and wondered if he could live up to the expectations. Could he lead? Could he continue to push the boundaries of innovation? Or would he fall short like so many others before him? He would often retreat to the quiet of his office, away from the hustle and bustle of the daily grind, and reflect. It was here that he would find the strength to keep going, not in the work itself, but in the realization that the success he had achieved was for someone more important than just himself. Riley's phone buzzed. It was a text from Aisha, his trusted colleague and friend. They had worked together side by side through the challenges, and her unwavering support had been crucial in his success. She had pushed him to believe in himself when he doubted his worth. Hey, Riley, we're all meeting at the cafe for lunch. Don't work through the whole day. You need a break. Riley chuckled to himself. She was right. He had been buried in his work for hours, and it was time to step away. It wasn't just about getting the job done anymore. It was about connecting with the team, building the kind of company culture that would keep the innovation flowing. He grabbed his jacket and headed out, walking across the factory floor toward the small cafe in the back. As he walked, he passed the assembly lines, the rows of cars under construction, and the engineers who were still hard at work on their latest projects. Tesla was bustling with energy, a place where ideas were born and pushed to the limit. It was the kind of place where Riley thrived, a place where he could make an impact on the future. As he reached the cafe, he saw Aisha already sitting at a table with a few others from the team. They greeted him with warm smiles, and as he sat down, they immediately began to share the latest developments. Aisha passed him a coffee cup and winked. "So how's the division going, boss?" she asked teasingly. Riley took a sip of the coffee, savoring the warmth of it. "It's going great," he said, his voice filled with confidence. "The team is coming together, and we're moving forward with some game-changing projects. But I won't lie, Aisha, I'm still adjusting to all this responsibility." Aisha leaned forward, her eyes twinkling with the same determination that had always been present in her. "You're more than ready for this, Riley. You've already proven that. We wouldn't be here without your designs, your vision. Don't forget that." Riley nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. He had always believed that his work would speak for itself, that his ideas would shine through the results. But now as a leader, it wasn't just about the designs. It was about leading the team to success, fostering creativity, and guiding them through challenges. It was a responsibility he took seriously. As the conversation continued, Riley found himself reflecting on his journey once again. He thought about the moments when he had wanted to quit, the times when everything had seemed too difficult to overcome. He remembered the long nights working at McDonald's, the sting of rejection when he was let go from Tesla, and the crushing sense of failure that had haunted him for so long. But that was in the past now. The road had been long and arduous, but it had led him here, into a future that was full of promise. "Riley," Aisha said, pulling him out of his thoughts, "there's something I've been meaning to ask you. What's next for you? Where do you want to take this division?" Riley smiled, his eyes lighting up as he thought about the future. "I think we're just getting started. We've got so much potential, and we're in a position to make a real impact. We're not just developing technology, we're changing the way people think about energy. And I want to make sure that we stay at the cutting edge. I want this team to be known for creating the future, not just responding to it." Aisha nodded, clearly impressed. "I couldn't have said it better myself." As Riley sat back, he realized that this was his moment, not just to succeed professionally, but to leave a legacy. His daughter Maya had always been his inspiration, the reason he kept pushing forward through every hardship. And now he was building a future for her, a future where she could follow her dreams, knowing that anything was possible. He walked back to his office that afternoon with a renewed sense of purpose. It was no longer about proving himself to others. It was about building something lasting, something that would change the world. He had been given a second chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. Riley Monroe had made it, and now he was ready for whatever came next.